Welcome to the Books Between Friends podcast.
3 lifelong friends,
one shared obsession.
Books.
From epic fantasy to page-turning thrillers.
We dive into the stories we love
and the ones we just can't stop talking about.
So take a seat,
grab a drink,
and get cozy. Welcome back, friends. Speaking of cozy, what's your cup of cozy today? Tonight, I am drinking a glass of red wine, specifically Cab, because that's my favorite. Steph, Ethan, what are you guys drinking? What's your cup of cozy?
I am having yet another chai with my homemade cold foam with some cinnamon. And I'm having it in a lovely Central Perk mug.
Love it. Love it.
Well, I'm also having a red Cab in my Slytherin mug. Because we're going to have to be shrewd in these next episodes.
Ooh.
I love that. I love that. So did I tell you guys that recently I got my mom hooked on books?
Ooh, do tell.
Yes.
Which books?
Okay, romance.
Smut?
Oh my God. Can you imagine my mom reading those? Absolutely not.
That's hilarious. I would love it.
I would be so embarrassed if she knew what I liked.
Same.
No. So we were watching the movie It Ends With Us, the one that Colleen Hoover was part of, her book, right? And so we were talking about the movie and she goes, "Oh, that was such a beautiful story. I'm so glad she didn't stay with Ryle, blah, blah, blah." I said, "Well, there's a second book." And she's like, "Oh, does that mean there's a second movie?" I said, "No, there's just a second book and her story continues with Atlas." And she goes, "Well,
I was going to say, don't they stay together?"
Well,
her and the book, but
no, her and Ryle don't stay together. Like the toxic relationship doesn't stay together. She ends up dating her childhood friend that she fell in love with. And so that's what the second book is about. And so I was telling my mom that, and she goes, "Well, I have to read it." I said, "Well, you don't read." And she goes, "Well, I can start." I said, "Okay." So I got her the book in Spanish. I sent it to her and she read it in 2 days, y'all.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
So she calls
she's
me.
in.
Yeah.
She's locked in.
She calls me. It's so
cool.
funny. She was like, "I understand." I said, "What?" "I understand why you read so much."
Oh gosh. You don't want her to understand too well, like per your last comment.
And I said, I told you, I was like, you just get hooked into the characters. You start talking, or you start wondering like what they're going to do next, what's going to happen. And so then she goes, "Well, I need another book." So I got her another Colleen Hoover. This one was Ugly Love. I don't know if you guys heard of it. And so it's another romance, and she read that one in like 2 days as well. And so she was like, "You know what these remind me of?" I said, "What?" She's like, "The novelas we used to like watch together growing up."
Hey, it probably feels a lot like an old school novella, like the drama and the romance. Yeah.
Push her down the stairs.
And then she gets amnesia. And she can't remember her whole entire life. And they have
so
to
she ends up hooking up with the brother.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, it's very that.
It's so much that. And so are these romance books sometimes. So yeah, so she's I'm trying to figure out what to get her to read next. Something that's like a good romance but doesn't have any trigger warnings in there, and definitely not any of the smutty books I read. So I'm trying to make a list of books that are appropriate for my mom.
That's too much. Steph, have you ever passed on like a book that spread through either like a family group or a close friend group, like you were the one responsible for it?
I think, classic Harry Potter. So after all the books had already been published and the movies were like a big deal, my cousins started getting into the books. And I was actually annoyed that at first my mom gave our books to them to read, but then like obviously I was a child at the time, so I was like, my books. But I'm glad they were able to enjoy them because, like spreading the joy of Harry Potter. So that was cool. It was cool to see, like after you've already discovered the story that you love so much and it like means so much to you, to see someone else experience it, that's always fun.
Yeah.
And like now as an adult, I like went ahead and bought myself the nice little full box set that you can see right there.
I still need to buy the set, y'all. And I still haven't read the Harry Potter books, actually.
Yeah, do that first.
Yeah, can't. Okay, well, I don't even know how to talk to you. We're supposed to do a podcast together. I don't trust you.
About books. This is crazy.
Hey,
Fantasy books at that.
I know the story, okay? I will read them, I promise.
I watched the movies. I'm an expert.
I didn't say I was an expert. I said I know the story.
Tomato.
Okay, I am making a
Yeah,
promise
every
right
year
now.
around like the holidays, Jen like rewatches all the movies, and I'm like,
Yes.
read the fucking books. I reread the books. She rewatches the movies.
Okay, this summer, that's my mission this summer, is to sit and read all the books.
And they're fast reads. Like they look big, but they're quick reads.
I will read them, I promise.
Font is huge. Margins are huge. It'll be easy.
They're children's books.
I got you guys. I'll read them. I promise. It'll be my 2025 promise to y'all. I will not let this year go by without reading these books, okay?
Your book resolution.
I'll hold you to
I
it.
dig it.
Yes. We're so excited to dive into part 7 of Onyx Storm, where we will discuss chapters 37 through 42. If you didn't catch our first 6 episodes of Onyx Storm, go listen to it now. Then come back and join us for this episode.
All right, you guys, spoiler alert once again. If you're listening to this episode, we're assuming that you've read all the way through chapter 42 of Onyx Storm. So there are going to be spoilers throughout this episode. But before we dive into the next 6 chapters, let's catch up on where we're at in Onyx Storm so far. Violet, Xaden, and Dane managed to win their trial by combat in Umbriel, securing an audience with their queen, who also turned out to be Marlis, the warrior that Violet fought during her trial. But things took a strange turn when a mysterious lightning strike destroyed a statue of Dune while Violet was fighting Marlis. With no magic on the island, could Violet have somehow wielded without even realizing? And adding to the mystery, there's a girl on the island with hair just like Violet's, and a cryptic conversation she had with the priestess about completing her dedication to Dune has left Violet with even more questions. Despite their victory, Violet wasn't able to negotiate an alliance with Umbriel. Queen Marlis demanded dragon eggs, which is way too high a price to pay. But the queen's request confirmed Violet's theory about the fall of the Crovelish rebellion. Hoping for a more peaceful stop, they headed to Hedotus, a place dedicated to Hedion, the god of knowledge and wisdom. But it's been anything but peaceful so far. As soon as they arrived on the island, they ran into Xaden's mom, Talia, who vanished from his life when he was just 10 years old. And it turns out she's married to one of the 3 members of the triumvirate that they have to face in their trial of wisdom. And as if that wasn't enough of a blow for Xaden, he also found out that he has 2 younger half-brothers. During a tense dinner with the triumvirate and Talia, Violet and her squad found themselves under fire, with all their personal life decisions being questioned and scrutinized. Then things took a deadly turn. Just as Violet realized that the chocolate cake they were served was poisoned, it was already too late for Garrick, who had eaten most of his slice. And as they searched the kitchen for clues about what was in the cake, Violet realized what they were poisoned with. The cook attacked them with his knife and managed to stab Riddick in the side. Now, Violet only has minutes to figure out the antidote before they lose Garrick.
That's so good.
That's what I wanted to say.
Literally.
What a cliffhanger to leave us off in that last
I
section of our
know.
episode.
Okay. So we finally get some answers in these next few chapters, even if they're not the answers we were hoping for. Honestly, I'm starting to lose some hope here after reading these chapters, but a huge pivotal scene happens, and we can't wait to get into our discussion with you all. Whenever chapter 36 ended, I was like, no, I cannot accept that we're going to lose Riddick the way we thought we were going to lose him, like we lost Liam. So I was so happy whenever it turned out that it didn't get Riddick at all. It actually just got his flight jacket, and Riddick was pissed. That's why whenever he said, well, that's unfortunate, it wasn't talking about him. It was talking about his jacket. So honestly, moment of relief there whenever I realized that it wasn't Riddick that the cook had stabbed. And so thankfully, Violet jumped right back into action and went back to tell everybody what the poison was. And it turns out that she actually had read it in her dad's journal or his book that he wrote her. and it had it under like the flora chart that he drew, where the Zakir berries are poisonous when allowed to ferment. Treat with fig or lime to the back of the throat within 1 hour. So Violet quickly remembered that there was figs in her rooms, and she sends Dane to go get them, and she quickly saves Skerrick. Whew, y'all. That was like I can't like I couldn't lose Garrick and Riddick at the same time. What did you guys
Oh
think
my
of that?
God. So much, like one after another after another. I was just so anxious and tense this whole time reading these chapters. Like, oh my God, Garrick is about to die. Oh my God, Riddick just got stabbed. Oh my God, we need to find the antidote. It was crazy.
Yeah, I this chapter, like this section in particular was really, really good. Like I think it still had some of the momentum from our previous section, right? Where you're making the visits to the Isle Kingdoms, and now we're at this one. And I mean, we talked about it last time, right? Where they pull into this kingdom and it's just different, and it's a slower pace than the others so far, and everything seems all nice. We have Talia as well, so that's another obstacle basically that's being thrown at them. And then are like, okay, when is the shit gonna hit the fan here? Like everything's been going really smooth up until this point. Like what's gonna happen? And then all of a sudden we have this poisoning, and then just things go from there. I think Violet has quite a few badass moments in this, and the
Yeah.
whole. I think the
Oh
biggest
yeah.
one.
Oh
I
yeah.
think the biggest one is the fact that she just keeps her cool during this whole thing. Like she is calm, cool, and collected. She's like, all right, he's being poisoned over here. I have to like save him. Also, I'm gonna gloat over here to Ferris. I got you before you even thought about getting us, haha. And then I'm also gonna trying to find an antidote all at the same time. I'm going to go back to the kitchens. I'm going to fight the cook. I'm going to do all these things all while still remembering, oh, this is what I'm looking for. That's the solution here. It's a wild ride, and I still think Riddick could be a villain. So
But and honestly, I was thinking the same thing.
No.
I'm like, how in the world did she remember that there was a freaking floral chart in her dad's book to know? It's like, oh my God, that's right. It was the berries, like the blue, whatever, connecting all the dots together. When I would have forgotten that I even read that part of the book at all. Because it's like, who wants to remember a floral chart as you're reading a book? Like, and the fact that her
Yeah.
dad had that in there, like the fact that he wrote down every poisonous thing that he could think of, or any little detail that could be pertinent in a moment, like the fact that he had all of that obviously goes to show why Violet is so smart and so clever, because she clearly got that inherited from her dad because he's so
Mhm.
smart and clever. The fact,
He
sorry, I was
prepared
gonna,
her for it.
yeah.
Yeah. And
mhm.
like, just like you, Jen, if I was in the middle of a war trying to find the key to ending this war, a different kind of dragon, I'm not thinking about flora. I don't care. Like, I don't even know that I would have the patience to read through that stuff.
Right.
But it mattered. Obviously, it mattered. And like, her dad somehow had the foresight to like give her all of this knowledge so that she could prepare for this. So I did not see it coming. I don't know why. Like it makes so much sense. All the way back in Fourth Wing, Violet was poisoning the other cadet so that she could win her,
Sparring match.
what do you call it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sparring matches. And so like this is her wheelhouse. Like she knows poison. So but I didn't see it coming that she had poisoned them. And it was so funny, like when they realized that, or they didn't even realize that she told them, because Ferris, was being annoying, and he was like, "Is this where you threaten to kill me if I don't give you the
Ugh.
antidote?" And she was just like, nope. Again, cool, calm, collected Violet. She's like, this is where I tell you that you're already dead. You have like minutes to live. I poisoned you too. Crazy.
I
That
love
was
that
so
part.
good.
And she had to think of that even before this whole dinner came to like, I think that she
Right.
probably had that aha moment as soon as she got invited to dinner. She's like, okay, this is a test. This is where they're going to test us. I need to figure out like how to get them before we even get to that part. And that's when she thought of the how do you say it? The errand? Aaron?
Aaron.
Airment.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's where she thought of the airment and quickly realized or remembered that she could use that as poison. And so I was just like, that is so fucking clever. Like, God damn, I don't think that I
Yeah.
would have remembered
I
or even
know.
thought about to do that
I'm thinking
before.
like, oh, okay, wisdom and knowledge, like we're gonna go into a trivia night. Not poisoned.
Not who outwits the other, right?
Oh my
Because
God.
that's really what it is. Like he needed to be outwitted and she got him. And I think what annoyed me the
Right.
most is that even though she got him, he to the very end was like, you didn't win, you didn't win, you didn't outsmart me. I'm like, bro, yeah, she did. Like
Yeah.
100%.
You were
Literally
gonna be
about
dead.
to die now. Like she wins. It's so crazy because and her dad said it in one of his entries, or it was like in one of the entries at the top of a chapter before this, where he said that he admired their dedication to wisdom and knowledge, but what was that word? Avarice or something like that?
Oh,
Artifice.
That scared him about them.
Hmm.
And this is it. This is what he meant. He was so determined to not let her win
Hmm.
that he was willing to die and let his wife die
Yeah.
to have
But
the last word, to have the upper hand. Insane.
But she knew, Violet, and I feel like Violet knew that about him too, especially because she did read her dad's books. Like she knew he wasn't just going to give in so easily or that he was going to admit defeat. So she had a backup plan with Andarna, which
Right.
absolutely
Yes.
loved that. Like she knew,
oh
okay, he's
yeah.
probably not going to care about his wife. He's not going to care about himself, but is he going to care about his two sons?
Yeah. And again, like I didn't see that coming from Violet, you know. She's threatening two little boys. Crazy.
Hey, whatever
She's
it
like
takes.
3 steps ahead of everybody.
Yeah. I'm almost like just how we're hitting on this, like how smart she's been, how clever she's been. I think it would be really easy to say, like, oh, this could be related to her second signet, like just having this intuitive knowledge, right? But I think that's selling her short because
Right.
she, even without her signet, she's still capable of being incredibly smart and clever. But I want to talk about this whole scene with Riddick, I like where he gets injured, but not really. Like it's immediately as I read it, I was like, all right, I'm already biased going into this because I already think he's being sus. But I was like, so I'm gonna try to put some blinders on and go into it. It still reads sus to me.
Okay,
Like
how?
because she comes up to him like I feel like that whole interaction was very rushed. Like it wasn't given its due diligence, right? Like usually when Violet sees someone get hurt, she even if there's like time constraints on her, like Garrick in the other room,
Hmm.
Yeah.
she's still wanting to check it out thoroughly because it's someone that she loves. I don't think this interaction got the same. I think it was very rushed, and for us the reader it's easy to see why it was rushed because Garrick's dying in the other room, right?
Right.
But even without that, sometimes Violet is sure to thoroughly check the scene. Like she would have been on the ground with the people that got drained by the wyverns and the venin had she been able to, right? Like so
Mhm.
it read sus to me.
Do you think that Violet suspects?
No, I don't.
Then why do you
Okay.
think that she didn't put as much attention to him?
No, I'm saying that as Rebecca Yarros being the one writing it.
The way
Like
it was
she,
written.
Oh, I see. Okay.
yeah.
Because honestly, I don't think that at all because Violet
Yeah.
was very upset and was very worried. She's like, oh no, this is happening again. Like, we're losing
Mhm.
somebody else. Like, she was in panic mode until she realized, okay,
I know. And because of that, I would have thought she would have stepped and had more time to thoroughly check him and make sure he wasn't bleeding, there was no cut, right? Like, I don't know, because she gets very mother hen about that, especially
Yeah.
after Liam.
she
And
does.
Yeah.
so with this, like, oh, he's fine. Okay, whew, I'm gonna go check on Garrick. Like that didn't read as Violet's
Yeah.
character to me.
Hmm. Okay.
I see that now, but I just chalked it up to like, okay, you're good. Now we got to go get Garrick.
Yeah,
And
I
it
didn't.
totally could be.
You
It
know?
totally could be. And I could be 100% wrong. It made me think,
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean,
Hmm.
especially since you're kind of already in that thought process already.
Hmm.
You're just kind of going with that as soon as you read anything that has to do with Riddick.
Yeah. And I'm like, people are going to think I hate Riddick. I love Riddick. I love Riddick almost as much as I love Liam. Like they're on the same pedestal to me, but because they are a similar character, it would make sense as a writer to make them completely the opposite of one another.
I don't think you hate Riddick. I think that you
No, but
are.
our audience is going to think I hate Riddick. I don't. I promise y'all. I love Riddick, but I don't know. I can't shake it. It's something. It's like I feel like someone close to Violet is going to betray her, and I'm
Yeah.
trying to look for the people who it would most likely be. That's where
Yeah.
this is
Well,
coming
we
from.
already know someone is betraying them.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I think that he would be a little too obvious as far as like the person who would betray her, because I don't know. I don't know. We'll get to that.
Okay.
But speaking of Riddick, like I think that him and Dane are starting to kind of pick up a little bit on Xaden being a little intense, because as soon as
Yes.
like he realizes that Garrick is going to live, he is immediately pissed at Ferris for what he
Ferris.
did, right? And so almost kills him. And Riddick was like, hey, whoa, 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 like we don't kill our allies, whatever, even after what they did. And he turns this look to him. And, you know, even Violet was like, it's something that freezes the blood in my veins. That isn't him. And so that's his like venin side showing up, right? And Dane kind of noticed it, I think. And so I think that he's starting to pick up on this, but is like, not saying anything because he knows Violet, and he knows that even if he does say something, nothing's gonna change. But I think that Dana's starting to pick up on what's going on.
I honestly wasn't even thinking about anybody else. I was just like, oh my God, Riddick's gonna die now again. I thought Xaden was gonna turn on him. I wasn't even thinking about anybody else in the room.
I picked
No.
up on that subtle like one-liner that said that Dane, I think, was picking up on what's going on.
Yeah,
Interesting.
I think that too. And I think it's cool of Dane, right? I think this is another point in Dane's favor where if he is starting to notice it, right? Like then he's trusting Violet enough to not say something to her, right? And because that's completely the opposite of what he would have done
Right.
earlier.
Yeah. And I think he probably knows that he's still walking a fine line here because, you know, he did betray her once and he's been slowly regaining that trust. But yeah, I didn't notice that Dane noticed it. You know, you can only hide it for so long, you know, eventually people are going to suss it out. And it's
Yeah.
happening.
I also think this is where Dane finally gets his full redemption, is where maybe something happens between Xaden and Violet and he ends up stepping in because he's known this whole time. Anyways, that's a later thought. But
Interesting.
so thankfully they get out of this unharmed, and thanks to Violet's planning and her cleverness. But of course they get no alliance with the Triumvirate. And so they move on to
I don't know how to say this one.
I would say,
Zehyllna?
wait,
Zehyllna?
Zehyllna, yeah.
Zehyllna?
Zehyllna?
Zehyllna.
Okay.
Zehyllna?
So they fly off to the
Anyway.
next isle.
The island of Z.
So they fly off to the next isle, and as they approach, they notice like people are waving, they're excited, they're like almost like they've been waiting for their approach to get there. And instead of showing fear like some of the other isles have shown, they are showing excitement. And they even have this arena where everybody's sitting down and they're cheering for the dragons and the riders and the flyers and the griffins as they approach. And just as they're getting, they feel like a slight change in the air, and it's magic. So it turns out there's actually magic there. And so finally, everybody can start communicating with each other. And the riders and flyers all finally get to communicate. Taryn and Sigel, which I'm sure they were missing that bond. And, you know, Xaden and Violet can finally communicate down their bond. So that to me was a change in pace, like how they were being welcomed into this isle, because I kind of figured that most people would be afraid of the dragons, you know?
Yeah. Well, I had a pit in my stomach this whole time. I just had this overwhelming sense of dread that they, number one, were expecting them. Number two, were so cheery. Like it all just seemed so sus to me. And I knew that something was about to happen. Something bad was about to happen. Like I was not falling for this happy, cheery, exciting welcome.
I 100% agree. Like as soon as I read the part where Violet was like, "Are they waving at us?" Oh, it was like, "Oh no." That's immediately, I had a pit in my stomach too. Someone's not gonna make it out of here. Like that was my immediate thought. Because too, when everyone lands and they realize that they have the connection or their bond again, like it was such a cute scene too, because you see like some riders and some flyers interacting with their griffins and dragons in a very cute way, like, oh, I can hear you again. Oh, this is so great. And I was like, oh no, we're getting buttered up even more. Like everyone's cute, everyone's happy. Something's gonna happen, and I don't want it to.
Yeah.
You know what was a funny aside to me? Like, while everybody's happy and reuniting with their dragons and with their griffins, Xaden and Violet, of course, decide to mentally argue, which is so weird. I just find it so odd that they do this. And I love that Riddick always points it out, like, oh, they're doing the weird
does.
thing again. It's just so weird to me. I don't like it. I know that's an unpopular opinion, but y'all are weird.
And then Calixta.
That's how I've been saying it.
So Calixta
Yes.
approaches them. So, they're all finally like kind of getting back into their norm of being able to talk to their bonded, right? And so then they finally see that somebody's approaching them, and she announces herself as the mistress of the festivities. And that as soon as she said that, I was like, what is going on?
Oh,
There's a
God.
festival going
Yeah.
on? Like, I mean, the fact that they already had something set up, or that they were even thinking that there was going to be some kind of festival with their arrival, like, what is going on here? But turns out that she speaks a common language, even though Eric is apparently fluent, which I think, Steph, you mentioned something about that in our last episode about how that's suspicious. Like, why does he know all these languages, right? When supposedly Navarre has cut ties with all these isles, right? I kind of start seeing what
it's
you're talking about
crazy.
there. Like, why does he know it so fluently? Like, how does
Right.
he practice?
Well, I was gonna say, like, maybe it's his second signet, right? Like, because everyone seems to be really taken, or not his second signet, his first signet. Like he's
Yeah, he
because
hasn't
apparently he
manifested.
hasn't manifested.
He hasn't manifested yet.
But what if this is like some kind of intrinsic ability, and that's why he hasn't said anything? But all of a sudden he can
Huh.
speak fluently, like in all because
That
to
would be
everyone's
cool.
point, like it's very shocking that he comes forward and people just assume it has something to do with his royal lineage. Like
That's
maybe
actually not a bad theory, because
Well,
that hasn't come up yet. His signet hasn't come up yet, and it would make sense why he would keep it hidden, because he knows intrinsics are sought after to kill, right? And so he doesn't want to die, and he could play it off as a royal thing.
I've been like really mulling this over and thinking like, okay, we know someone on their side is feeding
Betraying.
information to the venin.
Mhm.
And this whole time I've been thinking that King Tari is like feeding them somehow and is either a venin or being manipulated by a venin or controlled by one. And so I'm kind of looking at Eric like maybe his way of getting a hold into Basgiath in Violet's inner circle, and his ability to speak all of these languages is also, just feeding that theory for me. So I don't
can see
know.
that.
Yeah.
That's a solid
I'm looking
theory.
more closely at Eric for sure after these island visits. It's weird.
Oh yeah, yeah. And the fact that, well, anyways. So I was going to get into more of Eric, but let's move on before we start talking off on like a whole tangent. So they immediately already know why they're there. Like they're like, oh yeah, we know. You're looking for an alliance. And so she was like, okay, we can do that, but first you need to accept Zanal's gifts. And I was like, okay, what is that? What is that going to entail? What do you mean?
Is this going to be a gift I can return? Like,
But I immediately got.
Do I get a receipt?
Oh man, I immediately got really scared as soon as they said, but you can't complain. What do you mean you can't complain? Like you can't show any emotion? So then she brings out all these gifts or these cards, right? She brings out these cards. And so like one by one, each rider, each flyer has to pick up a card, and whatever's on that card, they have to accept it, and they have to accept it and just move on. They can't complain, whatever it is, even if they get something
Didn't
really
she
bad.
mention it? They have to happily accept it no matter what it is? Like
I
happily.
think it says they just have to accept it without complaint. That's all I remember. And I just remember thinking like, so you can't like on your face, she'll be like rejection or anything, right? And so one by one, They go up, they pick their cards. Some of them get some really weird ones, some get some really cute ones. Like I know Mira got a bottle of wine. I was like, yes, that would have been my
Who
gift
got the
right
kitten?
there. It was Drake.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm shipping Drake and Mira. What do y'all think?
100%, me
Oh,
too.
yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
I
I
actually think
love
there
them
probably was
together.
already something there. I think maybe something
Oh,
happened and that's
Huh.
why there's so much tension. Like maybe they hooked
yeah.
up before they knew who they were, like a writer and a flyer, you know?
Well, isn't this the same
That's why they're
guy?
so like toxically anti each other.
Isn't this the same guy though that said you're Mira, and then she was
Yeah.
like, oh, you're Drake? Like
Yes.
I thought that was like their tie, but I didn't think that anything extended beyond that. I just thought
Mhm.
there was that rivalry there, but that would be an interesting theory.
Well, remember Violet and the first book said that her sister has gotten around.
Yeah.
So, and that she's been very open
Maybe
about like
she's had a flyer at some point in time.
I think maybe she like slept with him and like didn't know he was a flyer. And then after she figured out he was
Mm,
a flyer, it's like she's mad because she let herself
give
fall
a
for a
flyer.
flyer,
Yeah.
Says
you
the
know?
romance reader enthusiast.
Hey,
That's such a good plot
romance.
for a romance.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Enemies to lovers, right? We're in one right now. Why not another one?
Listening, we claim the idea first. We claim the idea first.
That's why there's so much tension because it's like, you want to be, you want to get together again, but it's like, no, you're enemies, right? And so you
Right.
have this like hot tension between each other.
Mhm. And Mira's so
Anyways,
headstrong, but I love this for her. It's fun to
clearly,
witness.
I've read way too many romances, way too many.
That is brand new information.
Oh my gosh, never would have guessed. Well, okay, so I was actually really enjoying this scene. So like when Calixa approaches them, like, yes, I'm feeling a sense of dread, but I love a good thriller. At the same time that I'm dreading whatever's coming, I'm loving the imagery here. Like they bring out a table, they have a deck of cards. She shuffles it and she fans it out. So I'm imagining like an oracle who's about
Mhm.
to do a tarot reading, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, there's some bad stuff in that deck. We know there has to be. So I really enjoyed that.
And I think some of like the bad ones was when Dane got slapped.
That was
Yeah, that was
funny.
funny.
It didn't say to make a comment saying, "Oh, I wish I was that hand." I was
Yeah,
like, oh, tell us how you really feel, Xaden.
So
oh,
And
he doesn't
then
hide it. He never does.
no, he doesn't. Also, another thing that kind of came up when I was reading this was when Violet gets the broken compass and like the guy's kind of smug about it. I'm like, there has to be more to this broken compass. Like it can't be that he's smug with the fact that she got a broken one. Like I feel like that
Mhm.
compass maybe is important, but then it doesn't get brought up in the rest of these chapters, so I don't know. But that's what I was thinking
Yeah,
whenever
no,
I
I
read
because I
it.
didn't even
I
remember
was
that.
I was trying to like figure out some sort of meaning for everybody's gift as I'm reading.
Yeah.
And like especially when I got to Dane and he got slapped in the face. I'm thinking, okay, he needs to pay the price of his betrayal, in order to fully redeem himself. So I'm thinking there's got to be some sort of meaning behind everyone's gift. So the compass is interesting. Like, what does that mean?
Maybe
Yeah.
we're just reading too much into it because we want to read into everything.
Reading
And we're
between the
trying to
lines.
we're
We
trying to
are.
delay what we know the bad part is about
Yeah.
to happen.
I know. Okay. I just didn't want to bring up the fact that this is where we lose somebody.
Yeah.
Traeger. And then you know what the worst part about this loss was that Kat was finally happy. Finally, after like
I know.
longing after Xaden and having this rival with Violet because of Xaden, like she finally got past all that, finally moved on with Traeger, and then he fucking dies. Like what the
Yeah, like we just came off a scene while they were in Hedotus where they were holding hands on the beach and it was like so sweet and everyone was happy for them. And even I don't think I mentioned this, but like early on in one of the early chapters, was it Traeger who mentioned something about her pining for someone that doesn't want her when there was plenty of other people who want
yeah.
her? So like I saw that back then and was like really hoping it would happen. And so I was happy that it did finally happen on this mission, like a little glimmer of hope. And he's gone. Poor Trigger.
I know. I I was crushed for Traeger. I was crushed for Kat. Like
Yes.
because
Yeah.
it's so weird that we we get these characters, and she's brought in the second book as this complete bitch, right? And I was like, but she was written in such a way that, like, man, even when we get introduced to a bitchy character, for the most part, like, you're like, oh, I just really don't like you. And there's no redeeming quality in the moment. But even with Kat, even when she's first introduced, there was still something that I did not like her, but I also still kind of loved her. It was like a Regina George kind of moment, like where you like, you're scared of her, but you also want her to really like you. Like, that was Kat. And like, you love to hate her, hate to love her. Like, it, so I'm really sad for Kat. All that
I am too. And honestly, Violet almost loses this alliance because she reacts. And so does Kat, obviously, but Drake was able to hold her back, thankfully. Violet literally almost loses this whole alliance, and Traeger's death would have been for naught. And so Xaden, thankfully, was like, you have to get your shit together. Like, if you don't, we lose everything we came for. So thankfully, you know, she gets it together. She doesn't react, and they end up getting an alliance of 40,000 soldiers from this isle. But man,
so even Kat said it, you know, or someone said it, you know, if you break right now, he would have died in vain.
Yeah.
So that helped her. Okay. Yeah. So that helped her, you know, keep it together and grin through this and you know, she said at the end of the chapter, it like really broke my heart. She said, "Thank you."
And honestly, y'all, this kind of leads into just the weight of this mission on Violet, and like really realizing that everything really kind of does come down to her, because like this is her mission. She's the one in command. She's a leader in this group. So everyone's looking to her to make sure that everything moves forward. And she's just like, no, why? Why me? Why am I in charge? Why am I the leader? And Xaden's like, I hate to break it to you, but you were kind of selected by a general among dragons, like Terran, right? You know, he's like, you can either choose to step into leadership or he can drag you. But either way, you're going to end up a leader. And I'm just like, dude, yes, she's been an amazing leader this whole time. She's really smart. She knows how to make really great decisions based on all the information that's in front of her. But I get it. Like, who wants to be in charge? Who wants to have that guilt and that weight put on your shoulders, you know?
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, I hadn't really thought about it that way until Xaden just laid it out plainly for her. You know, she has been kind of resisting being the leader that she is destined to be in this whole situation. And I hadn't noticed, you know, obviously Terran is a leader among the dragons, and he chose her for a reason. So there's no escaping that she's going to have to step up in this war. And that really puts so much weight on her shoulders. That's so much to carry for a 20-something-year-old. So much is on the line, and so much is, you know, counting on her. And that's really hard to accept, but she's going to have to. Whether she likes it or not, she can't escape this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes I get really like pissed at Violet, like, and then there are most of the time there are moments where I'm just like really impressed by Violet, and this being one of them, because she acts so real, right? Like such a person here, because yes, she doesn't want to be the leader, and she probably hasn't thought about herself as a leader this whole entire time, but at the same time, you can tell as soon as she realizes, like, oh yeah, he's right, I am a leader, I am leading this mission, and then overwhelm, like she's worried about all of these things, and I was like, it's such a like beautiful moment where she's realized, like, she's overwhelmed, like that's what she's describing here. She's completely overwhelmed and she doesn't want to do it anymore. But then you know, as we have to do as adults, like, not saying that we are faced with wartime, right? Like as adults do, like we realize that the show has to go on, right?
Yeah.
Like we can't just stop living because of this. And I think that it was beautifully portrayed here. I like this scene a lot.
Yeah.
I do too.
Yeah.
And the fact that Xaden's the one that kind of has to tell her all of this too, like that's what I loved about it too, because it's like he's not the leader. I mean, yes, he's a leader in himself, in his own province too, and he makes, decisions based off of like what's best for the people. But I think that out of the two of them, Violet's the better one.
Yeah, and Xaden's been dealing with this his whole life. He has carried the burden of being responsible for the marked ones and leading the revolution in secret for years now. And he's also so young. Like all these characters are in their early 20s, so it's a lot to grapple with, and they're doing their best, and they're really impressive in the way that they handle these situations that they find themselves in through no choosing of their own. This was just thrown in their laps. And, it's so hard to imagine being that young at that age and carrying all of that weight on your shoulders. It's scary,
Yeah.
I don't know that I'd be able to rise to the occasion like these characters have. So it's really commendable.
But man, this next part, this is where we finally get answers. Finally get answers, but it's not
Oh
the
my
answers
God.
that we were hoping for. So they decide to bury Traeger in a minor isle, right? So they all go off, and so they realize that there's more islands actually to search than what the map shows. Violet being the leader, like we were talking about, she puts everybody into pairs, and they kind of all go off and search the islands for the irids. And so Violet stays behind because Andarna needs to rest, but she gets a little surprise of her own when the irids actually find them. Y'all, when this chapter came, I was like, oh my God. I was like, they're here. Oh my God,
It's happening. Yeah, so like when they got to that small island where they decided to light the pyre for Traeger and his griffin, they I don't remember if it was Violet who noticed, or they all noticed that the magic they felt on that island was a little bit stronger than at the island they were just at. So I got really excited. I was like, they're on the right path. They're going in the right direction. They just have to follow the magic. Because I think that somehow Violet might be able to wield because of Andarna, because she's an irid. So I'm thinking maybe they're a source of magic and they're getting closer to the irids. So I was getting really excited and like hoping that they were, going to find them on one of these hundreds of islands that she split them all up to go search. And then they found her. It's so crazy. I was so excited.
Well, they do say they are magic. They're magic themselves. So I think you're right. I think this whole time Violet has been able to channel and talk to her dragons because Andarna herself is just magic,
Right? Like, isn't this pretty much like our confirmation of what our theory has been about Andarna, right? Like, we
Right.
think that she has access. We think that she's been able to, because Mira said it's probably because you have two dragons. No, it's because she has one dragon, and that one dragon being Andarna. Like,
Yep.
she is the reason why. Which also, when I realized that, also made me a little fearful for Andarna from Xaden. Because if she's magic herself,
Mm-hmm.
that's an internal power source, which would also, I mean, kind of go with another theory that we've had that maybe Violet's second signet is just that she's an internal like generator, to where she
Yeah.
wouldn't have to worry about burning out because,
It's just
there's
continuous. Well, honestly, y'all, like this whole interaction, I was so happy and hopeful. And I'm like, yes, they're here. They found them. And Darna's reuniting with her family. Like, I was tearing up because I'm like, such a happy moment for her. And then it all goes to fucking shit, y'all. Like, what the heck just happened?
Like big flop.
Like, as soon as Andarna starts telling them, like, how she bonded, how she met Violet, how she helped her channel her special magic, like when Violet was in need, like it made Violet look like a really terrible person. And then I thought, if we are thinking of a perspective, right? Thinking of point of views, like she kind of does seem like she's taken advantage of Andarna a few times when she was trying to save her friends, not knowing what harm she was causing Andarna. And so I think like the dragons, that's the only point of view they were looking at it from. They weren't looking at it through the special bond that dragons and humans do have. But when they said that there's like hundreds of them, I was like, oh my God, like there's a whole species of them that left Navarre because of everything that was happening. And then honestly, y'all, like I was kind of pissed at this whole interaction because they said that Andarna was a criterion. And so she was left
Yeah.
behind to kind of like test humankind. And the fact that the humans turned out to be terrible, pretty much, like bonding with dragons, taking power from them, you know, channeling these signets and everything. Like, why is it that they put all their hopes on one hatchling, one dragon, and she had nobody to guide her, nobody to tell her what was supposed to happen. They left this one dragon behind to try to test all of humankind. Like who what? Make that
Yeah.
make sense.
Yeah, I was mad too. Like I was angry that I felt like they were wrongfully accusing Violet of something that she wasn't like she didn't mean to take advantage of Andarna. And all of those instances that Andarna told them about, she willingly offered her magic to Violet because she wanted to help her out. And yeah, she exactly to your point, Jen, why leave an unborn dragon, a hatchling, to fend for itself in a war-torn continent to test humanity to see if they would have evolved over the centuries that it took for her to hatch? You know, it takes me back to the trial with the triumvirate and wisdom. I'm like, how wise is it to do that? You're really stupid right now. That's insane. And they even start giving this holier than thou, like, we're for peace, we're not for war, we're, and you're so violent. And just all these unfair claims that they were making about Violet and Darna. Yeah, I was pissed. I hated this whole interaction. And like
Yeah.
they just weren't seeing her point of view or her perspective.
I was so angry, like blood boiling, blood pressure through the roof. I was so upset at this scene, and I was upset for Andarna because they did this, they made this decision. Obviously Andarna can't consent herself because she hasn't hatched yet, and
Mhm.
they make this decision for her and then treat her when she does find them, treat her as if she has no feelings, right? Like they didn't even think about how it would actually affect her developmentally, right? Like she emotionally developmentally, I guess to say, like
Yeah.
I was like, that's neglect, which is abuse, right? Like,
Mhm.
and just for science purposes, get out of me. How
Ugh.
arrogant as a breed
Yeah.
can you be? Like this proves arrogance to its maximum. And even more so, like if you don't help me, then the venin are going to come for you too. Like it's a whole world issue, not just over here. It's not
Yeah.
isolated.
Right.
It's going to spread. So it's going to affect you eventually. And
Yeah.
they still couldn't be bothered, right? Like we're not going to share any of our secrets with you because you, hatchling, have broken the rules by bonding with Violet and by bonding with a human that their only purpose is war, blah, blah, blah. Like holier than thou, to your point,
Right.
Steph. Like I was so upset that this is what Andarna, like they're going to have to pick up the pieces of Andarna because she's going to be heartbroken.
Oh,
Man,
I was so sad for
honestly,
her.
before we get to the like what they said about the venom, because honestly, I have a lot to say about that, by the way.
Mm.
They made a comment that I was just like, holy shit, what? So they were again, upset with Andarna for, they were like, oh, well, we thought you were going to come back and say that humans had evolved and that everybody blossomed under the word stone and, that no longer use magic as a weapon. And so he was like mad about the fact that humans can manifest signets, right? And then he points at Violet and Andarna was like, and you have handed this human something far more dangerous to wield. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. So they know what Violet's second signet is. And how the fuck does she
Yeah.
still not know? Like, I was just so mad. I was like, what is it? What is their second signet? What's so dangerous about it? Like, I need to know. Okay, sorry. I was just really
Y'all, I,
upset.
I was spiraling with that comment too.
Yes.
My
Yes.
brain was just like spinning in so many directions when they said that. I'm like, what is it? What is it? I need to know. And what is like the most dangerous thing that she could have? And I have some thoughts, but we'll get to it. But yeah, like like this whole interaction was just so crappy. But they go away to deliberate, but a couple of them come back. And then Xaden and Garrett come back from other islands that they were sent by Violet to go explore. And they were doing this thing there where they can kind of like bond with, you know, who was there on the island to communicate mentally with them, kind of like how dragons do with the humans they bond with. And then when they did that to be able to communicate with Xaden and Garrick, they realize that he's venin, and that's when they really lose them.
But before they get there, they talked about the venin a little bit, and I want to talk about like, what they said. And Darna was like asking all these questions before Xaden and Garrett get there, and so like this is what I want to get into. I was like, oh my god, we have to talk about this. And Darna asked him like, well, why don't you come and help us? Like, do you not care that people are dying? And so like one of the males was like, perhaps they should. Perhaps the corrupted ones should devour the land in its entirety. Only when they're faced with starvation will they confront the evil they've become. Either they'll die off and the land will regenerate, or they'll confront the abominations they've become and change. And then says, the soul is not kept by the earth as dark wielders steal its magic. The power exchange kills the soul one piece at a time, and death has no cure. So when I was reading that, that's when I lost all hope for Xaden.
Yeah, me too.
All right, there's no cure. He's not coming back from this. And honestly, whenever they said the whole starvation thing, I thought back to what was happening to Jack in the cell, right? Where he was dying because he wasn't channeling. And so I thought, you're right. What happens when all these dark wielders devour all the magic? They take everything and there's no more magic to take from. Are they going to end up starving and dying off? Or are they going to find a new way to keep, like, for one, I think that Xaden is going to fully turn, obviously. And two, I'm just like, there's absolutely no hope to change the venin back to being a human. Those are my thoughts. What do y'all think?
Yeah. So, yeah, that devastated me too, because that kind of confirms what the truth that Violet has been ignoring this whole time. Every time she tries to find a cure, it's like there is no cure. There's no turning back from this. There's nothing you can do. What's done is done. The parts of his soul that he has given in exchange for the energy that he has channeled are dead. They're gone. And so like that just really hit hard. But then Andarna latches on, oh okay, so like is that the cure? Do they just need to evolve? Is that how and then they confirm again there is no cure. But then again, back to the comment about like you have given her like an even more dangerous gift, right? I'm thinking, what is it? You know, is it so maybe we'll get to it in theories.
Yes, Xaden and Garrick finally do get there. And yes, they do like this little whistle thing that like lets them talk mind to mind, right? And so then as soon as they let Xaden into their minds, Xaden's eyes turn red. Because it's magic, right? Like they're pure magic. So they probably exposed what was in front of them. And so guess who notices his eyes? Riddick. And that is how it ends, with Riddick seeing that Xaden is venin and confronting Violet about it. So we'll have to wait and see what happens.
All right, everyone, that is the end of our deep dive, but we're going to discuss some of our predictions, final thoughts, maybe some theories that were born out of this episode as we were talking, which is hinting at myself. So as we were talking, one theory that like really makes me excited because I could really seeing it being a thing is that the irids created the venin.
I didn't even think about that.
I think the irids created the venin, and that's why Andarna is able to actually kill one, because what is created by something can also be undone by the same thing, right? And then
ooh, that's good.
what else was I think the irids created the venin, something went wrong, and yeah, as it does in fantasy novels, and the venin ended up taking on, their own, sentience. It's because if they're willing to experiment with one of their eggs, what makes us think that they wouldn't be willing to experiment with the rest of the world's demise? And even if the venin do
Right.
win, the irids kind of achieve what they wanted, which is peace. They even said it, like, we're creatures of peace, and what would the ultimate form of peace take is no magic at all.
No fighting, yeah.
Right.
Well, that kind of like leads me into what I was kind of thinking. I just put immediately the dragons knew that Xaden was venin, right? And so it made me think about the excerpt on chapter 1 that said, what we know about dragonkind is nothing compared to what we don't. So there's just so much we don't know about these dragons. There's so much we don't know about their politics, about the Empyrean themselves, like, and the fact that there's a whole species that separated themselves from everybody else. Like, there's just so much we don't know. And so I really think the fourth book is going to be about the dragons. And I think about the origin of everything, kind of going back to maybe giving us answers that you were talking about, Ethan, as far as like, where did the venom come from? How did they originate? Like, where did the dragons come from? What were their roles? Why did they leave? You know? And so I really, really do hope that the fourth one is about that, because there's just so much missing. There's so many answers that I feel like only the dragons can answer. And the fact that the freaking irids will not answer them like pisses me off. It's like, you know, you have the knowledge, you know what to say and what to do, and yet you will not share it. And the other
Right.
thing that, like, I already said it, I'm losing hope. I feel like I'm leaning more towards my theory that I mentioned back in Iron Flame, that Violet is going to join him. There, it's just going to be an inevitable thing where like Xaden is going to fully turn, and Violet loves him so much that she's just going to end up joining him. That's what I think. I'm still holding on to that one. And so I don't know, Steph.
Okay. So back to that comment they made to Andarna about her giving her something so dangerous, like her, it's got to be her second signet, right?
Right.
And like, y'all, I lost sleep after reading this section. Like, I couldn't stop thinking, like, what is it? What is it? Like, what could it be? And I have two possible theories that I came up with while I couldn't sleep that night. So, one being, I think I mentioned this before about time travel, because Andarna has stopped time a couple of times for Violet. So I think it has to do with time. If there is no cure, I took this whole section as confirmation that there is no turning back from becoming venin. There's no cure, but we need to cure Xaden. So how can we do that? If her second signet is time travel, can she master that signet to the point where she can go back to that point in time where he chose to channel for the first time and prevent him from doing that? And then my second thought was, okay, if it's not time travel, Ethan, you mentioned this earlier, like, are the irids are a source of magic in themselves? Is Andarna the reason why it seems like Violet can still wield while they're in these islands that have no magic, allegedly? So does that mean she's an endless well of power and magic through her bond with Andarna? And like, why would that be so dangerous? Well, we know that the venin want Violet for some reason. And is it for an endless source of magic? To have Violet is to have an unending source of magic.
Yeah, and that way you don't have to travel to drain the land, because if you're an endless
Right.
supply, you're right there. You're the generator.
Wherever you are.
And
Yeah.
now your reach has endless. So yeah, I think she's probably the end game for them.
Well,
Right.
and the fact that they won't have to face starvation too.
Exactly. Because, like, eventually they're going to run out of magic to drain from the continent. And
Right.
so they're going to have to go searching for magic because, as you mentioned, Jen, Jack was on the brink of death because he
Yep.
hadn't been able to drain.
Yeah.
So eventually they're going to get to that point. They need another source of power after they drain the entire continent.
Yep.
And so that got me spiraling even more to, like, I think this is why Navarre has been keeping the secret of venin for so long. They've been waiting for this endless source of magic because in my head, King Tari is a venin. and And they've been waiting for Violet to have this endless source.
I was thinking about your theory about the fact that you're like all these high leadership people are venin, right? I'm not saying you're wrong, but wouldn't they be able to know because like only the initiates can hide their eyes from everybody else? Once you become fully venin, like you are full blown, you can see that you're venin. Everybody else would notice it right away. So like if they are, I'm not saying they're not, then that means that they're either hidden all the time from people. Because I mean, again, we haven't seen King Tari ever really show up, just as mentioned, right? But like if we're thinking about like, we thought Varys was one, we think like Takaris might be one. You could tell if they were more than just an initiate, and at that point they would be more, or they could just have some kind of allegiance to the venin and to their sage and generals,
Yeah. Well, I think the only time he's like shown up in the books was back in Fourth Wing when they had that party for the Unification Day.
Oh, that's right. Mm-hmm.
You remember? And she talked to King Tari for a little bit. And she's grown up with King Tari because her mom was the general of Beskaya,
right,
and his sons. So like she knows him. But if he's not venin, then he's being manipulated or controlled by venin.
Right.
In the search for this endless source of power, which I think is Violet through Andarna.
Right.
Yeah. And also if there is someone in this group that is going to betray Violet, now they know where the irids are.
Well, not really, because remember they said that you cannot come back to our island and learn our ways.
True, but to Steph's point, if you just track the magic, right? Like you're going to find it
because you were
eventually.
feeling the magic. Yeah.
And if you're venin, you sense the magic wherever it is.
That's right. Yeah. So they know now to go beyond the Isles, is what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. They know where to go.
Oh,
they have a direction.
So next time on our Onyx Storm deep dive, betrayals and possible choices and a storm of consequences. Onyx Storm just won't let up, and neither will we. Violet's only hope dwindles before her eyes. Xaden's secrets are piling up, and the weight of them might just crush everything they've built. What will Riddick do now that he knows the truth about Xaden? In our next episode, we're diving into chapters 43 to 48. The tension only escalates, and Violet will have to make choices that could alter the course of everything. You won't want to miss this.
That's a wrap for Books Between Friends today. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you in the next chapter.